Hello, I'm Ben Brown, and this is the Iran War Today, our daily briefing, bringing you up to date with all you need to know on day 98 of the US-Israeli war with Iran. Well, let's start with some of today's key developments. And Israel has continued attacks on southern Lebanon a day after the Iranian-backed Hezbollah group rejected a renewed ceasefire deal between Israel and Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Lebanese president accused Iran of using his country as a bargaining chip in a deal with the United States, saying it's time for Hezbollah to sit down and talk. The US denies claims that Iranian warning shots forced American destroyers to withdraw from around the Gulf of Oman as tensions across the Gulf remain high. And reports from the White House say the United States has now issued visas for Iran's football team to enter the US less than a week from the start of the World Cup. Well, we start in Lebanon as the continuing conflict between Israel and the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah continues to be one of the major sticking points in a deal between the US and Iran. Iran has made the end of Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon a precondition for any peace deal with the United States, while Donald Trump says he'd like to separate and disentangle the two issues. But Israeli airstrikes on southern Lebanon have continued today. That follows the militant group Hezbollah rejecting a US-brokered ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon. Speaking in the Oval Office, President Trump said he had spoken to Hezbollah and did not agree that they've rejected the peace deal.
Reject me. They didn't reject that. And they're looking. I think Hezbollah, I will tell you, they called us and they said, how about stopping? And I think you're going to see things happen over there. That's been like a little bit of a different world, but it's interconnected with Iran. And it would be really nice if Lebanon could have some peace. Lebanon's been under attack for so many years and always like an underdog. And it would be really nice if it could end. And I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu about that. And I speak to them about it, and I actually spoke to Hezbollah about it. And I think progress is made. That's been going on for a long time. You know, when you look at that for years and years, 48 years, I say, well, let's get this settled. How long has it been going on? 48 years. I said, that's a long time.
Donald Trump there in the White House. Let's just take a moment to look in a bit more depth then at who Hezbollah are. They're a Shia Muslim group, the most powerful military and political organisation in Lebanon. They get strong financial backing from Iran, and opposition to Israel's right to exist was a founding principle. They are considered a terrorist organisation by Israel and several other nations, including the United Kingdom and the United States. Well, Hezbollah was initially formed to resist Israeli forces after their invasion of southern Lebanon back in 1982. That was during the Lebanese civil war. Their attacks on Israeli forces were instrumental in Israel's decision to end its 18-year occupation of the south back in 2000. In 2006, Hezbollah launched a cross-border attack, triggering 34 days of deadly fighting. In the aftermath of the war, Hezbollah then declared victory, and in the following years it built stronger ties with Iran and became even stronger than the Lebanese army. But the group has been significantly weakened over the last couple of years. In the aftermath of the mass attacks on Israel on October the 7th, Hezbollah launched its own attacks on Israel. In turn, Israel then mounted a powerful military campaign against the group. Then in March of this year, Hezbollah again launched attacks on northern Israel in response to the killing of Iran's supreme leader. That triggered this latest conflict, which continues to complicate the prospect of a broader end to the US-Israeli war with Iran. Let's go live now to Jerusalem. We can speak to our Middle East correspondent, Sebastian Usher. And Sebastian, just bring us up to date then with the latest from Lebanon, because as I say, and it's important to remember this, that the conflict between Israel and Lebanon is completely entangled with America's war in Iran, and it's impossible to separate the two.
Well, it is as far as the Iranians are concerned. As you've said, Iran has made more and more of this in the past week or so, that essentially if Israel continues its offensive, its ground operations, it's gone beyond any of the areas that it's been for more than 2 decades in Lebanon, then there can't be a deal with the US. So I think it's down to Iran. As we were hearing that President Trump would like to uncouple it from the deal with Iran to make it something distinct. But that isn't the case. I mean, as far as the Israelis are concerned, the Israeli government, they have pretty much made clear throughout that they will continue to do what they feel is necessary. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has essentially told the Israeli people that this time the Israeli army will go so far that it will be able to eliminate for good the threat of Hezbollah. I think many people here are skeptical about that because there have been many conflicts with Hezbollah before and it hasn't achieved that objective. But I think there are these very different ways of looking at the conflict in Lebanon at the moment, and it very much leaves out the Lebanese people and the Lebanese government itself.
Sebastian, we heard Donald Trump there saying that he has spoken to Hezbollah. Now, if that is the case, how significant would that be, do you think?
I think it's very unlikely that he or his people close to him have actually spoken directly to Hezbollah. What we gleaned when he said this earlier in the week was that US officials had spoken to intermediaries with Hezbollah. Now that would be essentially the Amal movement, which is another powerful Shia movement in the south of Lebanon particularly, and the long-term veteran Speaker of Parliament, Nabi Berri, leads that. And from what we've heard, it seems that that is where messages have been passed. That's where Hezbollah has sent its messages to the US about its response to the ceasefire that was agreed by representatives from the Israeli and Lebanese government in Washington earlier this week, but without any participation of Hezbollah. I think that's what he means. I mean, no president, US president, has spoken to Hezbollah, which, as you were saying, there is a terrorist designated organization in the US, nor to intermediaries. So, to speak through intermediaries to an extent is perhaps a newish move. Significant if there had been a deal agreed through this. At the moment, it doesn't look like that's the case. Again, as you were saying in your introduction there, Hezbollah has essentially rejected the terms of the ceasefire at the moment.
Sebastian, thank you very much indeed. Sebastian Usher reporting there. Now, the humanitarian impact on Lebanon has been absolutely seismic. Since hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah resumed in March, Lebanese authorities say more than 3,500 people have been killed in Lebanon, although the figures don't actually distinguish between civilians and militants. Meanwhile, more than 1 million people have been displaced. That's as a result of Israeli evacuation orders across around 1/8 of the territory of Lebanon. BBC Arabic has been speaking to displaced residents from Beirut's southern suburbs who are now living in tents. And here's some of what they told us about how their lives have changed and their feelings about the war.
This is not a ceasefire. It is an agreement that effectively destroys the people of southern Lebanon. It's a surrender, a loss of dignity and a loss of honor.
We were displaced from Beirut's southern suburbs and moved to a tent in Beirut. My wife, my children and I are staying there because we have relatives in the area. We are unable to meet all of our needs in the southern suburbs. As you know, living in a tent is very difficult. There are no proper bathroom facilities, and many basic services are lacking. Whenever there is a period of calm, we try to return home to collect our belongings, take care of essential needs, and check on our property.
Like many other people, I am currently living in a tent. It is extremely difficult, especially for families with children. This is the first time in my life that I've had to live in a tent, and having children makes it an enormous responsibility. We do not know where they can comfortably go to use the bathroom, and we struggle to find proper places to bathe. We are doing everything we can to provide our children what they need and to make them as comfortable as possible despite the circumstances.
So that is the view of people displaced inside Lebanon. Meanwhile, the United States military has denied Iranian claims It fired warning shots at American destroyers in the Gulf of Oman. It comes as tensions in the region continue after Iranian attacks on Kuwait this week. Now, also, there are reports in Iranian media that the foreign ministers of Iran and Pakistan have met twice in the last 24 hours as Pakistan continues to mediate between Washington and Tehran. There's no fresh news of progress, but President Trump has again sounded quite optimistic that a deal could be close.
You know, we've done a good job. As far as Iran's concerned, you're going to find out what the deal is. But the main parts of the deal is they can't have a nuclear weapon. The strait will open immediately. You know, it's going to open immediately. And we've largely swept for mines. We have the most sophisticated mines. They're underwater minesweepers. We're going to win one way or the other. We're going to win on paper, or we're going to win military. One way or the other. It's going to be militarily or on paper.
Well, with me now in the studio is BBC Persian's Taraneh Fathalian. And we heard there the president there talking about the main points of a possible deal with Iran. But, you know, he keeps talking about a possible deal. It never seems to actually happen. Where are we with these talks, and why can't they come to some agreement? Because they've both got their reasons. Both sides have got their reasons for ending this war.
It certainly seems like there's a stagnation, isn't it? They both seem to be going back and forth and trying to get the best out of this deal. Iran has said that they're insisting on their assets, their frozen assets and their money that there is blocked to have that back. One of the officials has said that they want 50% of the frozen assets back immediately and the rest very soon after, 1 month or 2 months after. And this is something that President Donald Trump had said that is not going to happen. President Trump has in the past criticized Obama for giving money to Iran in the past. So it seems like there's a stagnation, but they're both standing in a very fragile ground that the ceasefire can be broken at any, it seems like it's very fragile and it can be broken at any time. What is very clear is that this situation is not sustainable, not just for the US, for Iran either. The economy is crippling. People are very, very upset with everything that has been happening. Prices are rising dramatically. So it's not certain for how long Iran can keep this up. And there are concerns that if they keep the Strait of Hormuz closed for much longer, people, like countries, will find some sort of alternative and they can adjust and adapt. So it's not certain for how long they can keep that leverage.
Just on what it's like life in Iran for people. I mean, we're about to hit 100 days of this war. You talked about the economic conditions, but what about the internet? I think is that now back for some people in Iran?
Well, they say it's back, but speaking to a lot of people in Iran, they say that not everywhere in the country. It's very patchy, and people don't have complete access. It's not even back to where it was like before, because many websites and applications like Instagram were blocked anyway, but they say that they haven't even reached that level of connection. And as I mentioned, the economy is crippling. I've been following news in Iran. I've been monitoring it for years and years and years. And people of Iran have been through some tough times economically. But what I've been seeing the past 100 days is absolutely unprecedented. I have seen pictures, because internet has kind of opened. We have seen pictures and fresh images of war, and some of their footage were absolutely devastating.
OK, well, I'm sure we'll speak again, but thank you so much. BBC Persian's Taraneh Fathalian, thank you very much. Well, Donald Trump has reiterated his desire to meet Iran's new supreme leader. If the two sides can come to an agreement to end the war, the United States has retained a large amount of military hardware on standby in the region, while Iranian forces are no doubt also on high alert. But both sides have signalled they would prefer not to return to all-out war, leaving the question of how the stalemate will end as quite an open question at the moment. So let's go live to Washington and speak to our White House correspondent, Bernd Debusmann. And Bernd, well, we were just hearing there from my colleague at BBC Persian about how the Iranian people would love this war to end, but the American people would like to see it end as well, wouldn't they? They're seeing higher gas prices, and that's putting more pressure on President Trump.
Very much so. President Trump has been really quite dismissive of the domestic impact this is having politically for him. He says he doesn't care that there's midterms coming up, and he's kind of downplayed that economic fallout. He says Americans are willing to put up with that pain in the short term in exchange for Iran not having a nuclear weapon. But polls suggest that's not quite the case. Many Americans are extremely concerned about the price of petrol still being high in particular. But it's not just that. It's also the price of fertilizer, for example, which has shot up since the war began. So I think you're starting to see that pressure from other Republicans who think that this might come to haunt them in the midterms. And just this week, we saw several Republicans side with Democrats in what is essentially a symbolic rebuke of President Trump for keeping this conflict going without congressional approval. And the longer this goes on, I think the more you'll hear that sort of discontent from Republicans on Capitol Hill, who in turn will be hearing from their own constituents who are concerned about what this means for them in terms of their everyday economics if it drags on. The pressure is increasingly building on the White House to wrap this up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I suppose the Iranians and the Iranian leadership, they know that President Trump is under that pressure, that political pressure at home. And the other thing for the president is he's kind of boxed in, isn't he? Because the Iranians keep linking the war with what's going on in Lebanon, and Israel doesn't seem to really want to stop attacking Hezbollah in southern Lebanon.
No, certainly, and I think this week we really start to see the Trump administration's frustrations with the Israeli government kind of bubble over. We had that very terse, angry, kind of reportedly profanity-laced phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier this week. So I think we're starting to see kind of much more daylight between the two. Israeli war aims and U.S. war aims are not necessarily the same, and President Trump's far from the only president to have to deal with that reality. But also, the fact is that public opinion in the U.S. has been sort of shifting away from Israel. Recent polling has shown that far more Americans have a negative view of Israel than was the case even 3 or 4 years ago. So in some ways, it is politically expedient for President Trump to show that there is some distance between him and Prime Minister Netanyahu, even if in the long term, the U.S. commitment to Israel remains kind of ironclad. There's been no suggestion that President Trump will use his leverage over Israel to force any sort of outcome in Lebanon, for example, so far.
And Bernd, just one last question. We've heard in the last few minutes that Iran's footballers, despite the war, are going to be given visas to come to the United States for the World Cup, because there was obviously a lot of doubt about whether they would be allowed into America.
They have, and this has been a kind of a long-running saga that's taken many months to fix. Of course, the Iranian national team's first games, 2 of them are in California and 1 of them is in Seattle, so this was kind of a prerequisite for that to be able to happen. But there's been a lot of back and forth and kind of a lot of politicization over the Iranian participation in the World Cup. At one point, we even had a quite senior official in the Trump administration suggest that FIFA might swap them out. That was, of course, quickly dismissed, but this is something that has been going on for quite some time. And I think especially the games that are set in California, that's the largest population of Iranians and Iranian Americans in the United States. And they're very excited to see their team. So there would have been quite a lot of discontent if this had dragged on, given that the tournament begins just next week.
Bernd, good to have you with us. Thanks for those updates. That's Bernd Debusmann there, our North America correspondent. Thank you. Now, whether you are joining us on YouTube, TikTok, Sounds, radio or TV, thank you so much for your company. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the Iran War Today.